Sudipto sir. He is associate professor at the Biometrics Division, Bose Institute, Kolkata. So he is my first PhD student to work on the immunoinformatics, because he and Dr. Manoj Bhasin and Harpreet Singh, they all started immunoinformatics. Though Harpreet Singh left, but Manoj Bhasin worked on the T cell epitope side, and Sudipto mainly worked on the B cell epitope side, because that was the starting of the group to work towards immunoinformatics, and he contributed a lot. So particularly, he created the database actually for B cell epitope, and it was a really difficult job to search all the literature. So over the years, he read a lot of literature and he created excellent data. And after that, he developed a number of methods in the group, and which are highly cited so far in the group. So he is responsible for our group in B cell epitope. So he took the base, in our department, in the group. So after completing his PhD from Institute of Microbiotechnology, Chandigarh, under the JNU, okay, he went for the postdoctoral fellowship. So he was postdoctoral fellowship at Indiana University as well as in Western Case Western University, USA, at least for 5 years. He was in the US, and then he come back on the very rapid fellowship for Ramalingam Swami Re-Entry Fellowship, basically 2012 to 2017, and he is continuously publishing the paper. So that's a number of scientists are there who come from the abroad, normally are not able to perform in India actually. But he is a person, after coming back to India, he is fully performing well in such a short period. He has more than 70 research papers, number of databases, algorithms. So his contribution is enormous. So I will not take much time between you and Sudipto. So Sudipto, you are welcome for the summit.
Thank you, sir, for the nice introduction and giving me an opportunity to speak in this forum. So am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Your slides are also visible.
Okay. So my name is Sudipto Saha. I work in the division of bioinformatics. And today I'm going to talk about the possible paths towards panacea of allergic diseases, from biomarkers to the vaccines. In the past 2 to 3 decades, the therapy of allergic diseases is mostly restricted to steroids and anti-inflammatory drugs, which exert side effects. However, recently, with the advent of omics approaches, several biomarkers have been identified in allergic diseases, which, if exploited, can provide clues and about novel therapeutic strategies. Similarly, there is an advancement in the vaccine design of allergic diseases, and if implemented, can be a potential game changer in the field of allergy. So, let me change my slide.
So just click on the screen.
Thank you. So in the beginning, I should start what is allergy. So allergy is triggered by allergens, which are generally harmless agents in normal human beings and found in different sources like pollen, dust mites, molds, and certain foods. Allergy is an immunoglobulin-mediated hypersensitivity disease affecting more than 25% of the population, which is interesting to know. It means that 1 out of 4 individuals are affected with the allergic diseases. So allergic patients suffer from a broad variety of symptoms. Example, rhinoconjunctivitis, asthma, it's very common, dermatitis, gastrointestinal problems, and life-threatening systemic anaphylaxis upon allergen contact. So when allergens cross-link with the IgE epitope as shown here, and the IgE epitopes, they are bound to the FcRY receptors of the mast cells as well as the basophil cells. And this complex, the allergen IgE binding complex, initiate the release of inflammatory mediators, cytokines, and proteases, which lead to the immediate allergic inflammation. So many people think that the allergic diseases are generally harmless, but however, if you look into this slide, that the allergic rhinitis, generally they considered harmless, but however, when they're accompanied with severe asthma, they can cause high morbidity and mortality. Similarly, atopic dermatitis, which is also thought to be harmless, but however, some forms of eczema and exfoliative dermatitis can be troublesome. Asthma, as we know, that in case of aged patients, it can be severe and cause death. The anaphylaxis is the most severe form of allergic diseases, and food allergy, as we all know, that 1 out of 10 patients suffer from food allergy. Drug allergy is not that uncommon nowadays, and you all know that the most potential source of allergy are the pollens, which cause asthma as well as the anaphylaxis diseases. So I should start with biomarkers. What are biomarkers? The cellular, biochemical, or molecular changes, it can be mRNA, mRNA, or the protein level in the allergic patients, which are measured in the blood, sputum, or nasal secretions, can be considered the biomarkers. Currently, omics approaches are used, like transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics are also nowadays very common, lipidomics, epigenomics, and genomics, which include the SNP informations, are nowadays common in case of allergic disease in identifying the biomarkers. So how these biomarkers can be helpful? Biomarkers are used in the disease diagnosis, selection of targeted therapy, disease monitoring, as well as in the production of prognosis. So these are the basic steps how to identify biomarkers. Initially, we start with the clinical research and e-health records that generates the data about the disease, where the patient information as well as the disease information, symptoms are all recorded. And then we take the blood or the sputum samples of the patients, and then we use the omics approaches to generate the hypothesis. And once we generate the hypothesis based on the differential expression or in the presence or absence of the marker like SNPs in case of disease state versus healthy state, or disease state, allergic disease versus different disease states, which is not belonging to the allergic disease state, we can compare it and identify some of the biomarkers. And then those potential biomarkers need to be clinically validated in order to finally say that these are the validated biomarkers. And these finally can be implemented in the precision medicine. So first, when I came back from USA in 2012, we got interested with the asthma and allergy because I closely worked with my senior colleague, Professor Swati Gupta Bhattacharya, and her lab was more interested in the allergens and allergic diseases. So we got in touch, I got touch in with her, and then I started working with allergy and asthma biomarkers. So I must say that this was not the initial start. During my PhD days, Dr. Raghav sir once gave me a data of allergy or the potential allergens data and asked me to develop a prediction server which can predict allergens. So that time I got interested with the allergy, and then we developed a ALG-PRED, which was widely accepted at that time and heavily used. Now I saw that ALG-PRED 2 server has been developed by Raghav sir groups. So when I started, or when I saw that again, I came back after 10, 15 years, then again I came back and saw it's all again allergy, I got associated with it and started developing from the biomarkers point of view, which is the host factors. Try to see what are the changes takes place in the host factors of the allergic diseases, mainly the asthma, allergic dermatitis, food allergens. So we started compiling all the biomarkers. So if you can see, it has an user search, which is very simple form. It allows the blast tools, and you can see the search options. Mainly, it compiles the expression data coming from the omics approaches, mainly the genomics, proteomics, epigenomics. and it was published in the Clinical and Experimental Allergy in 2015. So initially it was only one table containing on the expression table. So we thought of why not started digging it more, because it has a high potential in collecting the biomarkers, and not only the expression data, but also the single nucleotide polymorphism, which was not included in the version 1. And we also added new features like gene ontology terminologies, protein-protein interactions, structures, the drugs, and developed a data version 2, which contains 4 tables. So if you see the panel B, which is the data statistics. So here the asthma, allergic rhinitis, asthma with allergic rhinitis, atopic dermatitis, and other allergic diseases are compiled not only in human but other organisms, which includes the model organisms like rat, mice. So C panel, you can see the option, the output results. It contains many information, including the disease phenotype, samples, whether the samples can be blood, samples can be T cells, B cells, or we also used whether those are available in the GeoPride database or not. If those data are omics approaches, here in this case it's the genomics approaches and it's available in the Geo database. And also use the GeoTerms, the SNP IDs if it is available there, and the BioGrid protein-protein interaction information, drug and structure information. Also, it contains the information of the monoclonal antibodies. If that particular host factors has any monoclonal antibody, then it's also been reported in the DAB-V2. So this is the browse options. So DAB-V2 can be browsed by 4 options, like browsed by SNP biomarkers, browsed by expression biomarkers, browsed by gene regulatory networks, and browsed by structure. So here you can see that in asthma, the biological samples, blood, CD4 cells, airway epithelial cells, sputums, and there are so many samples are there. Here I just took an example of airway epithelial cells. If you click on the network, you get the network here. So the red color means those genes are upregulated, and the green color means it's downregulated. So since we compiled the expression data from across different labs, different publications, we just put it as a 0 and 1, means that it's upregulated or downregulated. And also you can see that some of the nodes have a yellow color mark. It means that SNP informations are available. So if you click on the expression table, you can see that the gene names are there, and whether the genes are up or down, all the informations are available. And also the PMID references are also available. If the user have any doubt, they can click on the PubMed ID and they can search more information if they want. Similarly, if they click on the SNP data, all the nucleotide informations, the residues, the residues which has been mutated in case of humans are involved in case of particular disease, maybe the asthma or atopic dermatitis, they're all involved in the allergic diseases. They're compiled in this SNP data table. So next, what we thought, once we get huge amount of data, the biomarker information coming from 4 or 5 allergic diseases, including asthma, allergic rhinitis, atopic dermatitis, we thought of collecting it and doing some analysis. What we found that there is a common regulatory network which is observed across all the allergic diseases, which is represented in the panel B. So here it starts with the HMB-G1, and these particular transcription factors regulates STAT3, and also you can see that HMB-G1 can directly regulate IL-6. IL-6, since it's very common nowadays because due to the COVID-19, and we all know cytokine storm, So yesterday, Raghav sir was also telling that STAT3 and IL-6, whether we can find some small molecules which can inhibit the STAT3 IL-6. So the interesting thing to know is that IL-6 is not only regulated by STAT3, HMB-G1 is also regulate IL-6. So these datasets allows us to go through a quick search and find out that what are the common set of regulators which are observed in all the allergic diseases. So here we have listed TGF-B1, CXCL8, and TSL5. And also you can see that certain nodes are marked with a yellow color boundary, and those implement that SNP informations are also available. So here I must confess that since we have studied only the allergic disease, so it can be that this particular regulatory network may not be specific to allergic disease. It can be a regulatory network common in inflammation. So that we need to dig out. So if you look at the panel B, you see in case of interleukin 10, whether in case of atopic asthma, allergic rhinitis, or allergic dermatitis, you see a same set of SNP like RS18000871, RS8072. So all these 4 SNPs are observed in all the 3 allergic diseases. So it can be hypothesized that IL-10 in IL-10 gene, if you see these SNPs, then you can say that the possibilities are there that particular human being can be prone to allergic diseases. It can be asthma, it can be rhinitis, or it can be dermatitis. Similarly, if you can see the MIR146A55, which is a miRNA, we see that SNP has been observed only in atopic asthma, but not in allergic rhinitis or allergic dermatitis. Similarly, if you see at TNFA-IP3, you see that SNP information has been observed only in allergic rhinitis, not in asthma or dermatitis. If you look at the panel C, you'll see that the first row, which is depicted in the regulatory network form in the panel A, you see that all these are upregulated, which is a very interesting phenomenon. And we thought of why not we can target this particular regulatory network for allergic diseases. However, if you look at the FOXP3, it has been shown that it has been upregulated only in the atopic dermatitis, not in the asthma and allergic rhinitis. So one thing I must say here that all this expression has been observed in the blood. So it can be observed that these are the systemic biomarkers, not specific to a particular organ. For example, allergic dermatitis, you can take the skin information, but here in this case, or in case of asthma, you can take the sputum samples, or you can take the blood. But here the data which I'm showing right now in case of panel A and panel C, these are all upregulated or downregulated in case of blood. Similarly, if you see some of the miRNAs like MIR1260B, MIR45A, which has been shown to be downregulated only in asthma, but no report has been observed in allergic rhinitis as well as the atopic dermatitis. So what we can see that monoclonal antibodies against host factors like IgE and interleukins has been known, and they are known as biologics. So vaccines against host factors can be called as biologics, and there are some success stories as I'll show in the next slide. And based on the analysis of the biomarkers of allergic diseases from DAPV2, we can propose that anti-HMB-G1, because it is the most upstream transcriptional factor regulator, and we can develop monoclonal antibody against this HMB-G1, or we can develop monoclonal antibodies against IL-6 against the major allergic diseases. So in 2020, last year, the 2 papers came, one in the Frontiers in Immunology, where they have reported that there is a potential of targeting the HMB-G1 in case of inflammation disease. In this paper, which was published in Frontiers in Immunology, they mentioned that the HMB-G1 has been upregulated and it is present in all the cell types. And what they have done in this paper, they describe that HMBG1 can be targeted, the interaction of HMBG1 with the TLR4 in case of infectious disease, it can be targeted, and the monoclonal antibodies can be used against HMBG1 for particular epitopes which binds the TLR4, and they have described in this particular paper. On the right panel, you can see the review came up in Nature Reviews in 2020 in June, and they also shown that the IL-6 has a potential to be used as a monoclonal antibody against many diseases, mainly the inflammation disease, mainly the rheumatoid arthritis and the idiopathic arthritis. So several diseases are there where people have shown that the IL-6 can be potentially used. So here I have listed some of the success stories of monoclonal antibodies. So like omalizumab, which is targeted against IG, which is approved in 2003, and it has been used against asthma, allergic rhinitis, food allergies. Mepolizumab, IL-5, resilizumab, and dupilumab against IL-4, these are all used. And similarly, there are some other monoclonal antibodies which are in clinical phase trials, like IL-13, TSL5. If you notice that TSL5, it was observed in the network, which is common across all the allergic disease, IL-13, IL-4, and IL-33. However, there are some drawbacks of using monoclonal antibodies against host factors. Some of the disease like asthma or atopic dermatitis, they become resistant to drug. So those type of diseases like allergic diseases cannot be used for a long time using the monoclonal antibodies. So the next strategy is whether we can develop vaccine against allergic diseases. So the concept of vaccine against allergic disease is not new. In 1903, Dunbar, he used the pollens coming from the grass, and he inoculated in a patients, and is found to be protective against hay fever. However, after long run, it shows some side effects. So then came the advance of the peptide-based vaccines. So instead of using the whole allergen as such, we can use the epitopes of those particular allergens and characterize the B cell and T cell epitopes, and then we can make some changes in the B cell and T cell epitopes to make sure that the IG reactivity and the T cell mediated reactivity is low. And then you can use a carrier molecule like haptens, and you can produce a vaccine against, or you can formulate a vaccine against allergic disease. So coming back to the concept of pan-allergens. So what are pan-allergens? There are certain groups of allergens which are cross-reactives across taxonomic groups, which means that different species or different organisms, maybe plants or animals, can have a same set of allergens and which have displays extensive immunological cross-reactivity due to the presence of conserved IgE and the T cell epitopes. That at least known, there are 6 types of pan-allergens are known. One is the BEDV1, propylene family, pectus lyse family, tropomyosin, cyclophilin, and the enolase family. So the new concept of vaccine against allergens is that we can use the pan-allergen concept, and similarly you can use the carrier molecule with allergen-derived non-aliphatic peptides, which means that we use the epitopes against the allergens, and you make some changes on the IG and the T cell epitopes and make it as a non-aliphatic, and then use as in the vaccine design. So what does exactly non-aliphatic peptides mean? So non-aliphatic peptide means that you have to reduce the IgE reactivity and you have to reduce the allergen-specific T cell reactivity. Unlike in infectious disease, where you use the intact epitopes, B cell epitopes or T cell epitopes, but in case of allergic diseases, you have to make some changes. You cannot use the intact epitope. You have to make some changes in the epitope and then use it so that you can reduce the IgE as well as the allergen T cell reactivity. How you can do it? You can do it by making some changes in the charge residues of IgE epitopes. Suppose if in a residue there is a positive charge, you replace with the opposite charge like negative charge residues. For example, if it is a lysine or arginine within the IgE epitopes, you can change it with the aspartic acid. And then if there are two positive charges or two positive negative charges, then you can make with the changes with the opposite charges, and the second charge residue we can use or substitute with a uncharged hydrophobic residue like alanine. So what does it mean? That if there are two side-by-side charge residues, one you change with the opposite residue, and the second one you change with a uncharged hydrophobic residues, so that no hydrogen bond formation takes place between the IgE epitope and the allergens and the paratopes of IgE. So in the classical study, people first used to make changes in the IgE epitope, but don't consider the T cell epitopes. They thought that making changes in the IgE epitope will be enough. But however, in the study in 1999, people have shown that not only you have to make changes in the IgE epitope, because if you make changes only in the IgE epitope and keep the T cell epitope as an intact, then it can induce systematic late phase side effects. So to avoid these systematic late phase side effects, now the strategy is to make changes in the IgE epitope, and also you have to remove the T cell epitope specific to the allergen. So the new concept has emerged where in case of non-allophilic peptides, you have to remove the allergen specific T cell epitopes. Also, in addition to that, you have to induce pro-inflammatory cytokine, example IL-10. So the overall goal is to selectively induce protective IgE response and not to induce or boost IgE response. So the pan-allergen concept, as I was talking about. So now how can you use both the pan-allergen as well as the NAP concept? So what we found that there are 4 pan-allergen families are already available in the Alfam databases, and we collected all the potential allergens coming from these 4 families, and we collected the FASTA format and performed a multiple sequence alignment. So in case of BED-B1, there were 26 allergens. In case of propylene, there are 47. Tropomycin, there are 34. And in case of bacterialize, there are 9. So we skip the 2 families because what we found that in case of 2 families, there was no common conserved residues were observed. So we skip those 2 families and we use these 4 families. And then whenever there is a conserved region, we try to see whether there is a linear IgE epitopes are there or not. So in case of linear IgE epitopes, we used only the experimentally known IgE epitopes. The whole idea is that suppose you take the BED-B family of 26 different allergens which are coming from the same family, you perform the multiple sequence alignment, you found the conserved residues, and then we see whether there are linear experimentally IgE epitopes are available on the conserved residues or not. So if there are, then we took those residues and considered for making some changes and make it as a non-allophilic peptides by changing the residues of IgE epitopes and T cell epitopes. So now the concept is that if there is an overlap between the IgE epitopes and the T cell epitopes, then we make some changes in the conserved residues. And however, in many cases, we found that IgE epitopes and the T cell epitopes are not overlapping. So in that case, we altogether remove the T cell epitopes. We kept only the IgE epitopes. In the other scenario, when there is overlap, we just make changes, make sure that the IgE epitopes are intact. And then we use the hapten carrier. So hapten carrier, we use the cholera toxin. And as we all know that cholera toxin is a T helper cell response, which is a CD4 response. And we try to since we removed the T cell epitopes, we used chlorotoxin as a general CD4 response. So this is a brief overview of our work and what we proposed. Suppose in case of BED-V1, we found there are 26 different types of allergens, and then we make an alignment. We went to the make an alignment of Ig epitopes and T cell epitopes. Whenever there's a conserved region, we try to see whether the Ig epitopes are there or not. And for that, we used LR-base and IEDB. And once we got that conserved region, once we found the conserved region, then we try to see that Ig epitopes and T cell epitopes. As I said, we make changes in the charge residues of Ig epitopes. And if there is overlap, we make residues. And if there is no overlap between Ig and T cell epitopes, we altogether remove the T cell epitopes. And then what we did was we used different types of hapten carriers. So in case of allergic field, initially people have reported a Pre-S, which is coming from the hepatitis virus. And we also use CTB, tetanus fragments and the Pre-S. And we use this combination, we put it in the N-terminal, we put it in the C-terminal, and try to see whether the stability of the protein is increased or not. So we use different methods like the secondary structure, the stability size, the Gravy score, and then finally we see the mRNA structure is stable or not, whether the IL-10 response is there or not. And also we try to see, make sure that the stereochemical quality of the structures or protein structures is good or not. So I must mention one thing here, that in case of looking for whether the IL-10 epitopes or peptides are available or not, we use the IL-10 prediction server, which is developed from Raghav Sir group. So then we used all those features and try to see whether there is all sorts of combinations. And since we have multiple peptides, we arrange the peptides in a different sort and played with all those things, make sure that the mRNA structure, the protein structures are stable or not. So coming to the BED-V1 and the profilin family. So it has been observed that the BED-V1 people who are sensitized with BED-V1, they are also or mostly sensitized with the BED-V2 allergen. And the BED-V2 allergen comes in the profilin family. So what we thought that why not make a construct coming from the BED-V1 family as well as the profilin family. So we, as I said, that we chose the conserved region across the BED-V1 family. We collected the peptides, which is demonstrated here as P1 and P2. And from the profilin family, the peptides coming from P3 and P4. And then we made a construct. We use the Pre-S, we use the chlorotoxin, and we use the tetanus toxin. And we also use the linkers. And whenever we make a combination, we try to see the aliphatic index and make sure that the aliphatic index is greater than 70. We also make sure that the instability index is less than 40 and the Gravy score is less than 0. So these are the basic parameters we chose to make the construct. And once we chose the construct, we also make sure that that particular construct is expressed or put it in the PED28 A plus vector, which is the bacterial expression vector, to make sure that the reading frame is intact and the reading frame of our construct is close to the ribosomal side, and the start codon is intact, the promoter region is intact, and we use the NCBI open reading frame server to make sure that our construct is good. And also the next phase is that we also try to see that the mRNA structure is also forming stable or not, to make sure that there is no beta hairpin or the 5 hairpin or some loop formation is taking place, to make sure that the mRNA is stable or not. Once we find out that the expression is proper based on in silico approaches, the mRNA is stable, then we look for the tertiary structures. one thing we have to keep in mind that we are using a synthetic peptides. So we have to make sure that the stereochemical quality of the construct is good or not. So what we found that if we consider the highly preferred and preferred region, we found that at least 95% of the it's shown to be in a preferred region. Last but not least, we want to make sure that it also have the pro-inflammatory response, and whether the synthetic construct, whether they have the IL-10 epitopes or not. If you look at the IL-10 epitopes, the last two are marked in a bold color. It shows that these two peptides are coming from the construct from P1, P2, P3, P4, and the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 5 they're coming from the cholera enterotoxin as well as the tetanus toxin part. Next, we move to the next family, which is the tropomyosin. So in my previous slide, we talked about the BED-P1 and the profilin, which is mostly coming from the plant family. But here, if you look at this particular slide, the tropomyosin is coming from the animal family, mainly the cockroaches, the termites, and also by eating the prawns, fishes, people can ingest it and they can have some allergic diseases. So in this also, we took a similar approach. We collected all the tropomyosin family and then we found a conserved region. Similar steps were followed, and we also found that the aliphatic index was high. We choose a threshold of 70, and the instability index is also good. It's less than 40, and the gravity score is also less than 0. And the delta G score of the mRNA structure is also good. And also we found that the highly preferred and the preferred region, if you combine, it's more than 95%. And the interesting thing in case of this particular construct is that we found that there are a higher number of IL-10 peptides are coming from the peptide P5, P6, P7, P8, P9. So it means that these peptides induce higher amount of IL-10 epitopes, which is good for making a vaccine against allergic disease. Next, we move to the pectidized, where the cedar family, which is shown in the rightmost panel, many people get allergic to the family of cedar as well as the ragweed, which is also very common weed allergy. So in the first two constructs, we found that in those peptides, there were no PTMs were available. PTMs means the post-translation modifications were not there. So we went for the bacterial expression vector. But in this case, in case of P10 and P11, in one of those peptides, there was an N-glycosylation sites. So since there was a PTM involved, so we thought of using a mammalian expression vector. So here we choose a mammalian expression vector to express it, and also we found that the reading frame is intact. It is very close to the ribosomal binding site. The start codon is intact. The promoter region is equally good, and also we found that the aliphatic index is greater than 70, instability index less than 40, and the gravity score is also less than 0. And also we found that in case of the protein level, tertiary structure, also if we combine the preferred and highly preferred region, it was shown to be more than 95%. Similarly, we also found that the IL-10 epitopes, which is, we use a prediction server, as I said before, and we found there are at least 6 or 7 peptides are there, which has been shown to induce IL-10 epitopes. So one thing is that once we have the allergic disease, it has been, if we know that the mother is suffering from allergic disease, then there is a chance that the offspring can also suffer from the allergic disease. If you look at the leftmost panel A, in case of natural course, in case of non-allergic disease, in case of non-allergic subjects, if you look at this, then you see the IG level is low. and the IgG level is in a mild symptom level. But if you look at the lower left panel, where in case of natural course is the allergic patient, you see the Ig level, which is marked in a red color, shoots up, and the IgG level goes down. But if you use a vaccination strategy, and if you use vaccine, if you use a prenatal vaccine, and then in the offspring, if you look at the Ig level goes down, and also IgG response is in a mild symptom level. But however, if you use a primary vaccination and then you use a postnatal vaccination, the Ig level goes down and also the IgG level should stop, and which is good for the allergic diseases. So summary of my talk, that 1 in 4 individuals suffer from allergic diseases, and there are importance of biomarkers in allergic diseases. If we, in our case, we found in case of DAPB2, when we analyzed the biomarkers data, we found that the HMBG1, which is shown as a transcription factor, it regulates many other proteins, including the STAT3, IL-6, and can we regulate or make a monoclonal antibody against HMBG1 or against IL-6? And I discussed about the possible vaccination approach targeting the pan-allergens like BEDV1 and the Profilin, and the concept of non-anaphylactic peptides and carrier heparin as a next generation allergen vaccine. So these are the reference. So DAPB2 was published last month, and DAPB1 was published in 2015. And the concept of designing next generation vaccine against common pan-allergens has been communicated, and it's in revision now. So Shreyasi, Sudipto, Bhattacharya, and Tanmay Jana, they were involved in making the DAPB2, and Gaurav Sarkar, who is now a faculty in the Vishwabharati University, Nandini Ghosh, who is also a faculty in the Vidyasagar University. They worked in the concept of making vaccine against allergic diseases. I would also like to thank Bose Institute Division of Bioinformatics Computational Facility. And these are the current lab members. We have moved to our new campus, which is the Unified Academic Campus. And at the background, you can see our wet lab. And these are the students, some of the students are newly joined. And Abhirupa and Sudipto, they work on the dry lab, mainly the computational facility. And the remaining people, they work in the wet lab. So this is our newly unified academic campus. And I'd like to thank you. And if there is any questions, I'll be happy to take it. Thank you.